Who do you trust? Who do you listen to? How are you gonna live your life? This is a choice we've gotta wrestle through. Every girl and boy and man and wife. God gave Adam and Eve a choice. Trust him or trust the voices they heard around him. They chose poorly. By turning away from God, they said they didn't believe him. They were going to go their own way. And sin entered the world.
What's sin?
Sin is when we ignore God, when we go our own way, when we put ourselves first in front of our friends and neighbors and in front of God. When we say to God, I don't care what you say, I'm going to do it my way. Sin entering the world changed everything.
Why?
Because of who God is. God is so pure, sin cannot be near him. Now that serpent knew that. He was trying to hurt God, and he knew if he could get Adam and Eve to sin, then they couldn't be close to God. God's most beloved creatures would have to live their lives apart from him.
Couldn't God just change the rules so they could be with him again? He can do anything, right?
Yes, God can do anything. Anything except change his own nature. He can't change who he is. If God changed who he was, he wouldn't be God anymore. So even though it made God very, very sad, Adam and Eve had to leave the garden and live new lives in a wild, mean world. Now they're a long, long way from paradise. Yes, they're a long, long way from home. And now the world they're in ain't very nice because they're living on their own. So once again we ask the question, who do you trust? Who do you listen to? How are you gonna live your life? This is choice we've gotta wrestle through. Every girl and boy and man and wife.
This isn't a very happy story.
Nope, and unfortunately the rest of primeval history only gets worse. Sin has a way of spreading, so much so that one of Adam and Eve's sons turned on his brother and killed him.
Oh no.
Then there were more and more people and more sin until God's creation was drowning in sin. God decided the only way to keep his creation from drowning in sin was to drown the sin. So he flooded the whole world.
Oh, I know this story.
Yep, all that sin was washed away. Unfortunately, so was most of his creation. But he chose one family, led by one man, to start over.
Noah.
That's right. Noah had tried to avoid sin all his life so he could be closer to God. He wasn't perfect, but he was a good man who listened for God's voice. That's why God chose him to start things over. Him and a bunch of animals, of course.
Who came in by twosies.
Except for the ones they used for food. They came in by sevensies. You see, Noah trusted God and listened to God, and God used his family to start over again, to give his creation a second chance.
Is that the end of primeval history?
Unfortunately, no. After the flood, Noah's family was still living in a broken world full of temptation to do your own thing. They were a long, long way from paradise. They were a long, long way from home. And some of Noah's kids were not so nice as they were living on their own. They wondered, who should we trust? Who should we listen to? How are we gonna live our lives? This is choice we've gotta wrestle through. All the girls and boys and men and wives. So Noah's kids had kids, and they had kids, and so on and so on, and they got successful and started building towns and cities and getting proud of themselves. This, of course, is sin. They thought they were so great they decided to build a tower to touch the sky so they could be as tall as God.
That's a crazy idea.
Yep, leave folks alone long enough and they'll come up with all sorts of crazy ideas, like ostrich racing.
Did God have to flood the world again?
No, he promised after the first flood that he would never do that again. That's what the rainbow was about.
Oh yeah, I remember.
But he had to do something because their sinful pride was out of control. So he mixed up their language.
What?
He made it so they couldn't understand each other. He scrambled their talking. If they couldn't understand each other, they couldn't work together to build that big, prideful tower. So they all gave up and wandered off on their own. And God knew it was time for his real rescue plan. A plan that could take the sin away from his children once and for all and set the world right so we could all live with him once more.
Ooh, tell me that story.
I can't. We've come to the end of primeval history, the first 11 chapters of Genesis that set up the rest of the Bible and all alive. But I hope you've learned from these stories a great truth that we'll see over and over again.